Parley, of course, had been what we might call a seeker before he officially was introduced to Mormonism. A seeker was sort of that group of individuals, and there were a lot of them in the early American Republic, who had been sort of unchurched, or at least didn't find identification with an established church, and sought true religion by using sort of the New Testament as a model. Where could they find a church that sort of was as close as they could find to the New Testament? And that led Parley into a number of different groups. And of course, the story is that he was traveling with his wife and heard sort of the Spirit whisper to him to get off at a certain place, and he sent his wife on. And in that city, of course, then he found a copy of the Book of Mormon, and then had to find where the author of it was. And when he got to Palmyra, of course, Joseph was not there. He was down in Harmony, Pennsylvania, right at home at the time. But he was able to see and talk to Hiram. He was able to talk to witnesses of the Book of Mormon, and was eventually baptized and ordained an elder and went off on his first mission before he met Joseph Smith, which says something about his conversion. It wasn't just Joseph Smith that brought him into the faith. But like many early members, missionary work was pretty informal. That is, you sort of felt the Spirit and you went off and did missionary work. Only gradually did specific mission calls come in the church, where you actually got an assignment. And usually when you got an assignment, it was pretty open-ended. You could go for a month or two, and in a farming culture you had to be around to plant your crops and harvest them, so you had to work that around there. And of course, when he finally does meet Joseph Smith, the time is just right for Joseph, or for the Lord through Joseph, to send missionaries to the borders of the Lamanites. Of course, that was one of the burdens of this new book of Scripture, that there had been promises made that the gospel would be returned to them. Well, where would you go in 1830-31 if you were going to preach to the descendants of the Book of Mormon peoples? Well, you'd go out where the United States government after 1830 was beginning to move all Native Americans west of the Mississippi and Missouri rivers to the areas, to the essentially Oklahoma and that area today. So the borders of the Lamanites in the Revelation of the Doctrine and Covenants would have been that area. So Parley was one of 4 individuals selected to go on that very important first mission. But of course, he had met friends and had become sort of a follower, in a sense, before his conversion to Mormonism, to a group of people in the Mentor, Kirtland, Ohio area, led by Sidney Rigdon, who was a follower of a man by the name of Alexander Campbell, sort of Reformed Baptists. And so he convinced the Lamanite missionaries to make a detour on their way to Missouri, and in about a matter of weeks, they suddenly had more converts in Ohio than they had in New York. And of course, Joseph would eventually move the headquarters of the church to that area. But of course, then the missionaries headed on down and eventually established a branch of the church in today Caw Township, or the area that we know of as Independence, Missouri.